My parents invited me to a fancy family dinner with all my relatives. Then my father rose and announced to everyone, "We've decided to cut you out of the inheritance. You never deserved it." Everyone laughed and agreed. I smiled, took a sip, and quietly left. 2 days later, complete family chaos. His words hit me like a physical blow, echoing through the lavish private dining room. "We've decided to cut you out of the inheritance. You never deserved it." In that instant, the world stopped spinning. The crystal chandelier above seemed to freeze mid-sparkle, the soft classical music faded to nothing, and every single face at that elegant table turned to stare at me, their expressions a sickening mix of smug satisfaction and outright glee. My entire extended family was there, aunts, uncles, cousins, even my own grandmother. This wasn't just any restaurant. It was one of those places, the kind you book months in advance, where waiters wear white gloves and menus mysteriously omit prices. They had spared absolutely no expense for this spectacle, for my public execution. My father, standing at the head of the table, repeated himself, his voice thick with wine and something far more intoxicating, triumph. "Did you hear me, Tara? You're out. Completely out." Beside him, my mother delicately dabbed the corners of her mouth with a linen napkin, but her eyes, they couldn't hide the ugly smirk playing on her lips. My younger brother, Kevin, leaned back in his chair, a smug grin twisting his face that made my stomach churn. My sister, Paige, couldn't even meet my gaze, but I saw her shoulders shaking, struggling to contain her laughter. "That's what happens when you turn your back on family." My Aunt Carol chimed in, her voice dripping with the kind of false sympathy that makes you want to scream. "We all saw it coming," Uncle Gerald added, actually raising his wine glass in a grotesque toast to family loyalty. The table erupted. Glasses clinked, people guffawed, and my cousin Bethany, she actually clapped. It was a performance, a morbid, well-rehearsed play designed solely for my humiliation. I carefully set my fork down, my hands surprisingly steady, despite the inferno of rage building in my chest. In a single, excruciating second, 29 years of memories flashed before my eyes, Kevin always getting the bigger birthday present, Paige always receiving the better Christmas gifts. Every family dinner, every accomplishment I ever dared to mention, brushed aside while my siblings were lauded for the most mundane achievements. But this felt like a new low. Just 3 days prior, my father had called, his voice warm, almost inviting, for the first time in months. "We're having a very important family dinner on Saturday, Tara. Everyone will be there. We'd really like you to come. It's been too long." A stupid, hopeful part of me, a part one thought I'd long since killed off, actually believed, for a fleeting moment, that maybe, just maybe, they finally wanted to make things right. Instead, they just wanted a front-row audience for my public execution. I slowly scanned the table, letting my gaze linger on each face. My grandmother, the one who used to sneak me cookies as a child, couldn't meet my eyes. My cousin Jeffrey, whom I'd tutored through 2 years of college, weekend after weekend, stared fixedly at his plate. Even Uncle Thomas, who always claimed I was his favorite niece, raised his glass right along with the others. "Nothing to say, Tara?" My mother purred, her voice saccharine sweet, tinged with a predatory impatience. "No tears? No begging?" I picked up my wine glass, a ridiculously expensive Bordeaux my father had ostentatiously ordered for the whole table. I took a slow, deliberate sip, letting the silence stretch, letting them wonder. Then I smiled. A calm, tight, knowing smile. "Congratulations," I said softly, setting the glass down. "I hope it was worth it." I stood up, smoothed my dress, and picked up my purse. The table fell silent again, but this time it wasn't triumphant, it was confused. They'd expected the breakdown, the tears, maybe even a screaming match. Definitely a scene that would fuel their gossip for months. My quiet defiance stole their satisfaction, and that was its own kind of victory. "Wait, that's it!" Kevin called out, his voice a childish whine as I turned towards the door. "You're just leaving?" I paused, glancing back over my shoulder. My father's triumphant smirk had dissolved into an uncertain frown. My mother's sickly sweet smile had completely faltered. "What else would you like me to do?" I asked, my voice pleasant, almost genuinely curious. "You've made your decision. I accept it." Paige started to speak, but I was already walking away. As I stepped out of the private dining room and into the bustling main area of the restaurant, I heard the confused murmuring start behind me. They didn't get it. They had orchestrated this entire elaborate spectacle, spent weeks imagining my humiliation, savoring the thought of my pain. My quiet, dignified departure had snatched their satisfaction right out from under them. And as I exited, all I could think was, let them wonder. My phone buzzed in my purse. A text from Kevin. "Don't think you can change Dad's mind later. This is final." I deleted it. Another from Paige. "You always were dramatic." Deleted. When the valet brought my car around, a modest sedan I'd bought myself, paid for with my own money, from my own hard work, I tipped him and slid behind the wheel. Everything I had I'd earned. And for my family, that had always been the problem. As I pulled away, I caught one last glimpse of the restaurant in my rearview mirror. Inside, they were probably still celebrating, toasting their imagined victory, already mentally spending the money they thought they'd secured by cutting me out. They had no idea what was coming. 2 days. That was all it would take. I drove home on autopilot, my mind already 3 steps ahead. The anger that had simmered through dinner now burned with a cold, precise clarity. They wanted to humiliate me, to break me, to watch me crumble. They thought I was weak. They'd forgotten who taught me to be ruthless. My apartment, a quiet 1-bedroom in a neighborhood 20 minutes from downtown Birmingham, was nothing fancy. It was just enough space for me and my cat, Winston. I'd moved here 6 years ago when I started at Brightfin Wealth Management, one of the city's most prestigious financial advisory firms. As I unlocked my door, Winston immediately wound around my ankles, meowing his demand for dinner. I fed him, poured myself a real glass of wine, not the overpriced show-off bottle my father had ordered, and sat down at my kitchen table with my laptop. The truth was, I'd been expecting something like this for months. The hints, the comments about family values and loyalty, the insidious suggestions about knowing my place. Kevin had been insufferable, constantly talking about his grand future plans, and Paige had started treating me like a stranger. But deep down, I'd held on to a foolish hope that maybe, despite everything, they would finally see me as more than just a disappointment. That hope died tonight. I opened my laptop and pulled up a folder I'd created 3 months ago. I called it insurance, though that felt too generous. It was more like evidence. Proof. A detailed record of every financial transaction my parents had made in the last 5 years. My father, you see, thought I was just a mediocre financial analyst at a medium-sized firm. He considered my job boring, my salary modest, my career unremarkable. He loved to compare me to Kevin, who worked in tech, which, as far as I could tell, mostly involved playing video games and calling it user experience research. And Paige? Her entrepreneurial spirit manifested as an online boutique that had been hemorrhaging money for 3 years straight. What my father didn't know was that I wasn't just any financial analyst. I was a forensic accountant, specializing in asset recovery and fraud detection. My firm handled some of the largest fraud cases in the Southeast, and I was, to put it mildly, very good at my job. 3 months prior, my mother had innocently asked for help with a minor tax question. She'd handed me a folder full of documents, trusting I'd do exactly as she asked and nothing more. What she didn't expect was that I'd recognize the patterns immediately. The shell companies, the offshore accounts, the creative bookkeeping that pushed right up against the edge of legality, and often crossed it completely. I spent the next 2 months quietly gathering information, not necessarily planning to use it, but because I believe in being prepared. My father had built his small real estate empire through a combination of hard work, strategic investments, and, as it turned out, some very questionable, if not outright illegal, financial practices. Now, at my kitchen table, I stared at spreadsheets that told a story my family desperately wanted to keep hidden. My father had been siphoning money from his business partners through complicated schemes. My mother had been using nonprofit organizations she claimed to support as her personal piggy bank. Together, they'd built a majestic house of cards, impressive from the outside, but ready to collapse the moment anyone looked too closely. And I was going to make damn sure someone looked very closely indeed. Just then, my phone rang again. My grandmother's name flashed on the screen. For a moment, I hesitated. She had been there tonight. She had sat through the entire cruel spectacle, said nothing as they stripped away my inheritance, my dignity, my very place in the family. But she was calling now. "Hello, Grandma," I answered. "Tara, honey." Her voice was thin, tired. I wanted to apologize for tonight. That was cruel of your father. I should have spoken up." A silence stretched between us. "But you didn't," I stated, not accusingly, just factually. "No. I didn't. I'm sorry." I closed my eyes. A part of me, a small, stubborn part, wanted to forgive her, wanted to believe she was different. But I'd learned tonight that wishing for something and getting it were two entirely different things. "Why did they do it?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Why now? What did I do that was so terrible?" My grandmother sighed, a deep, weary sound. "It wasn't about what you did, sweetheart. It was about what you didn't do. You didn't need them. You never came begging for money or help or approval. You built your own life, and that scared them. Your father likes to be needed, to be important. You made him feel irrelevant." She paused, then added, almost too softly to hear, "And the inheritance you think you've lost, it was never really yours to lose. Tara, there's something you should know. Your father has been in serious financial trouble for the past year. Big troubles. The inheritance you think exists? Most of it is already gone. Tonight was just theater. He wanted to hurt you before you found out there was nothing left to inherit anyway." My hand tightened on the phone. "Are you sure?" I asked, the words barely escaping. "I'm old, not stupid," she retorted, a flicker of her old fire. "I know what I see." After we hung up, I sat in the dark kitchen, processing this explosive new information. My father was broke. The grand inheritance he'd dangled over our heads our entire lives was a complete fiction, and he'd gathered the whole family together to humiliate me before the truth came out. A slow, chilling smile spread across my face in the darkness. This was going to be even better than I thought. By the way, if you're still hooked on this twisted tale of family betrayal and unexpected secrets, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. Trust me, you won't want to miss how this all unfolds. More unbelievable stories like this are coming your way. Sunday morning dawned clear and bright, a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside me. I'd spent most of the night buried in files, making meticulous notes, sketching out my next moves. Winston, my long-suffering cat, had eventually given up trying to coax me to bed around 2 a.m. and simply curled up on a stack of papers next to my laptop. Now, sitting at my favorite coffee shop with a triple-shot latte, I was ready. I pulled out my phone and composed a message to Timothy, an investigative journalist for the Birmingham Tribune. We'd worked together 6 months prior on a massive fraud case. I provided the forensic expertise, he'd written the stories that brought the truth to light. He owed me. "Hey Timothy," I typed. "Remember when you said you owed me a favor? I might have a story for you. Interested?" His reply came back in less than a minute. "Always. What are we talking about?" "Local real estate developer. Possible fraud, embezzlement, tax evasion. Multiple victims." I paused, then added, "Want to meet? When and where?" We arranged to meet Tuesday morning at his office. That gave me one more day to organize everything, to make sure my case was absolutely airtight. I couldn't afford any mistakes. This had to be perfect. I spent the rest of Sunday delving even deeper into my father's financial records. The more I looked, the uglier it got. He'd borrowed money from business partners and never repaid it. He'd taken out loans using properties he didn't fully own as collateral. He'd created fake companies to hide income and inflate expenses. Every single transaction left a paper trail, and every single trail led directly back to my father. My mother, of course, was complicit. She'd signed documents, opened accounts, moved money around. They had built this empire of deception together, and together they would fall. Monday morning, I went to work as usual, but the nervous energy buzzing under my skin was intense. My boss, Patricia, a woman in her 50s, sharp as a tack and perceptive as anyone I knew, stopped by my desk with her coffee. "Big case?" she asked, eyeing my laser focus. "Personal project," I replied. "But yes, big." She studied me for a long moment. "Does this personal project involve the family dinner you mentioned Friday?" I told her I was dreading a family event, but never why. "It might," I admitted. She nodded slowly. "If you need anything, resources, time, advice, you let me know. Family can be complicated. Family can be toxic." I corrected her, a wry smile touching my lips. "But thank you, I will." I worked through lunch, barely registering the passing hours. By 5 p.m., I had compiled everything I needed for Timothy: bank statements detailing suspicious transfers, property records revealing fraudulent deals, email chains proving my father knew exactly what he was doing, contract agreements with forged signatures, tax returns that clearly didn't match actual income. It was enough. Enough to send someone to prison. That evening, Kevin called. I let it go to voicemail. He called again. Ignored. On the third attempt, I finally answered. "What do you want, Kevin?" "Jesus, took you long enough. Look, Dad wants to talk to you." "I have nothing to say to Dad." "Come on, Tara, don't be dramatic. He's willing to reconsider if you apologize." I actually laughed. A dry, humorless sound. "Apologize for what?" "For embarrassing the family on Saturday. For leaving like that. For making a scene." "I didn't make a scene." I left quietly. "Exactly. You left. You embarrassed Dad in front of everyone. He spent a lot of money on that dinner. He spent a lot of money to humiliate me." I corrected him, my voice flat. "But I appreciate the call. Tell Dad I said no thanks on the reconsideration." "You're making a mistake, Tara," Kevin warned, his voice turning petulant. "You don't want to be on the wrong side of this family." "I'm pretty sure I'm on the only right side," I said and hung up. 10 minutes later, Paige texted. "Kevin said you were rude to him. Why do you have to make everything so difficult?" No response from me. Then my mother. "Your father is very disappointed. You always were ungrateful." Delete. Uncle Gerald. "Your parents only wanted what's best for the family. I hope you'll reconsider your attitude." Delete. Aunt Carol. "Such a shame to see you throw away your family like this. Pride comes before a fall, Tara." I stared at that last message for a long moment. Pride comes before a fall. She had no idea how right she was, only wrong about who would be doing the falling. Tuesday morning, I met Timothy at his office downtown. The Tribune's building, an old converted warehouse, smelled faintly of printer ink and stale coffee. His office was a familiar clutter of papers and half-empty mugs. "You look tired," he observed as I sat down. "Long weekend," I replied, cutting straight to the chase. I laid out everything: documents, spreadsheets, timelines, stacks of evidence. Timothy's eyes widened with each page. "Holy hell," he breathed, leaning back in his chair. "This is massive. How long has this been going on?" "At least 5 years, probably longer. I only have access to the last 5 years of records." "And the victims?" he pressed. "Multiple business partners who lost money, non-profit organizations that never received promised donations, investors who bought into projects that don't even exist. The list goes on." Timothy ran his hands through his hair. "This could take down more than just your father. This could expose an entire network of corruption in Birmingham's real estate sector." "I know," I said quietly. He looked at me, his gaze serious. These are your parents, Tara. Are you sure you want to do this? I thought back to Saturday night. The laughter. The mocking. The way they had all looked at me like I was nothing, like I had never mattered. I'm sure, I affirmed. Okay. Timothy nodded. Give me 3 days. I need to verify some of this independently, talk to sources, build the story properly. Can you wait 3 days? I've waited 29 years, I said, a small, grim smile playing on my lips. 3 more days won't kill me. Wednesday morning began with a nervous energy thrumming beneath my skin. Timothy had my information. The investigation was officially underway. All I had to do was wait and act normal. Acting normal, I quickly discovered, was a special kind of torture. At work, I kept checking my phone, anticipating updates from Timothy. Nothing. He was being thorough, which I appreciated, but every hour felt like a week. Around 10 a.m., my desk phone rang. Internal call. I picked up. Tara, could you come to my office? Patricia's voice was serious, clipped. We need to talk. My stomach plummeted. Had someone found out? Had my family somehow caught wind of my plans? My mind raced as I walked to Patricia's office. She sat behind her desk, her expression unreadable. Close the door and sit down, she instructed. I did, my heart hammering against my ribs. Patricia folded her hands on the desk. I had an interesting conversation this morning with a potential client. He called asking about you specifically. Wanted to know if you were available for a private consultation on some financial matters. Who was it? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He didn't give his real name, but the number traced back to your father's business. Ice water ran through my veins. He was checking up on me. That would be my guess, Patricia confirmed. He asked about your qualifications, your specialty, your recent cases. I told him you were one of our best forensic accountants, and that if he wanted to hire you, he'd need to go through proper channels and fill out our intake paperwork. What did he say? He hung up. Patricia leaned back in her chair, her gaze steady. Tara, whatever you're planning, be careful. If your father is sniffing around, he might suspect something. He doesn't suspect anything, I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. He thinks I'm weak and insignificant. He's probably just curious about what I actually do for a living. Maybe. Patricia didn't sound convinced. But paranoid men do dangerous things. Watch your back. My phone buzzed again. A text from Kevin. Dad wants to have lunch with you. Just you two. He says it's important. I stared at the message. A trap. It had to be. My father didn't do private lunches, not with me. He didn't do one-on-one conversations unless he wanted something, or, more accurately, wanted to take something. I texted back. Busy all week. Maybe next month. Kevin's response was immediate. He says it can't wait. Tomorrow at noon, the Summit Club. He'll be waiting. The Summit Club. My father's favorite. An exclusive, expensive place where he conducted business and felt powerful. I didn't respond. More texts flooded in, Kevin again. He's trying to make things right. Tara, don't be stubborn. My mother. Your father is extending an olive branch. The least you could do is show up. And Paige. Seriously, you can't even have lunch with Dad? You're so petty. They were coordinating, pushing, trying to force me into a corner. I called Timothy. Hey. He answered. I was just about to call you. We have a problem. My heart sank. What kind of problem? Someone contacted my editor this morning. An anonymous tip that I was working on a story based on falsified documents provided by a disgruntled family member. My editor wants to see all my sources before we run anything. They know. I whispered, the realization chilling me. My family knows I'm coming after them. We don't know that for sure. Timothy tried to reassure me. Could be coincidence. My father called my office this morning pretending to be a client. Now he wants to meet me for lunch tomorrow, and you get an anonymous tip warning you off? That's not coincidence. Timothy was silent for a moment. Okay. So, what do you want to do? We can still run the story, but it'll take longer to verify everything if my editor's being cautious. How much longer? Maybe a week. 2 at most. I don't have 2 weeks, I said, my voice tight. They're circling. Whatever they're planning it now. Then we need to be smarter. Timothy decided. Go to the lunch. See what he wants. Maybe he'll give us something we can use. Or maybe he'll just try to intimidate me into backing off. I mused. Can he? I closed my eyes, remembering Saturday night, the humiliation, the laughter, my entire family looking at me like I was nothing. No, I said, my voice firm. He can't. That evening, I did something I rarely did. I called my grandmother. She answered on the 3rd ring. Tara, sweetheart, I was hoping you'd call. Grandma, has Dad said anything about me lately? Anything unusual? She hesitated. He's been asking questions about your job, your finances. Whether you have any connections in the media. Why? He suspects something. Suspects what? I couldn't tell her the truth, not yet. Just that I'm not as broken as he hoped I'd be. Tara, what are you doing? What I should have done years ago, I said, my voice firm. Standing up for myself. Be careful, she warned, her voice laced with concern. Your father doesn't like being challenged. He gets mean when he feels cornered. I know, I replied, a bitter laugh escaping me. I learned from the best. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment, the silence heavy. My father was making moves, he was suspicious, but he didn't know exactly what I was planning, or he would have done more than request a lunch meeting. He was fishing, trying to figure out what I knew. The smart thing, the logical thing, would be to wait. Let Timothy finish his investigation, build the case meticulously. Be patient. But patience had never been my strong suit. I texted Kevin back. Fine. Noon tomorrow at the Summit Club. Tell Dad I'll be there. His response was predictably triumphant. Good choice. He'll be pleased. I doubted that very much. That night, sleep was an impossible dream. I lay awake, replaying scenarios in my head. What would my father say? What would he offer? Would he try to bribe me, threaten me, manipulate me into believing I'd imagined everything? Around 2 a.m., I gave up and made tea. Winston followed me into the kitchen, meowing his disapproval at the late hour. I know, buddy, I whispered, stroking his soft fur. I'm being ridiculous. But I wasn't. I was being careful. Thorough. Strategic. I pulled out my laptop and reviewed everything one last time. The evidence was solid. The paper trail, crystal clear. Even if my father suspected something, he couldn't erase what he'd already done. The transactions existed. The fraud was real. The victims were real. Tomorrow, I would sit across from my father. I would listen to whatever story he wanted to spin. I would smile and nod, letting him think he was winning. And then I would watch his world burn. Thursday morning arrived far too quickly. I dressed meticulously, professional, but not intimidating, confident, but not aggressive. I wanted my father to see the daughter he thought he knew, not the woman who was about to dismantle his entire life. The Summit Club, perched on the top floor of one of downtown Birmingham's oldest buildings, exuded old money. I arrived precisely at noon. Mr. Anderson is already here, the hostess informed me, leading the way. My father sat at a corner table with a sweeping view of the city. He stood as I approached, a practiced smile plastered on his face as if Saturday night had never happened. Tara, sweetheart, thank you for coming. I sat down without offering a hug. What do you want, Dad? His smile faltered, just for a second. Can't a father want to have lunch with his daughter? Not this father. Not this daughter. Not anymore. He sighed, sinking into his chair. I suppose I deserve that. Saturday night was harsh. Your mother and I have been talking, and we think we were too hasty. Too hasty in cutting me out of the inheritance, Or too hasty in humiliating me in front of the entire family? Both, he admitted, a strained look on his face. We let emotion get the better of us. A waiter appeared, placing water and menus before us. My father ordered a scotch. I ordered nothing. You're not eating? He asked when the waiter left. I'm not staying long. Say what you need to say. He studied me across the table, and I saw a flicker in his eyes, confusion, perhaps even a sliver of concern. This wasn't going according to his script. Tara, I want to make things right between us. The inheritance situation was a mistake. We're willing to reconsider. Willing to reconsider, I repeated, a dangerous softness in my voice. How generous. Don't be sarcastic. I'm trying to fix this. Why now, Dad? What changed between Saturday and today? He shifted uncomfortably. Your mother feels guilty. She thinks we were too harsh. Mom doesn't feel guilty about anything she does, I stated, watching his composure crack. Try again. The waiter brought his scotch. My father took a long, fortifying sip before answering. Fine. You want the truth? We're concerned about you. After Saturday, we expected you to call, to fight back, to do something. Instead, you just disappeared. That's not like you. You don't know what's like me. I shot back, my voice gaining strength. You never bothered to find out. That's not fair. Saturday night wasn't fair, I countered, my voice rising slightly. Spending 29 years watching you worship Kevin and Paige while treating me like an inconvenience wasn't fair. So forgive me if I don't care about your definition of fairness. My father's jaw tightened. There it was, the temper I remembered from childhood. Watch your tone. I'm still your father. Biologically, yes. In every way that matters? Debatable. He slammed his glass down, hard enough that nearby diners glanced over. I don't know what's gotten into you, but this attitude needs to stop. I'm offering you a chance to come back into the family, to restore your inheritance. Don't throw that away because of pride. It's not about pride, I said, my voice eerily calm. It's about self-respect. Something I should have developed years ago. Then I leaned forward, my voice dropping. By the way, Dad, why did you call my office yesterday? The question caught him completely off guard. What? You called Brightfin Wealth Management yesterday morning, pretended to be a potential client, asked questions about me. Why? He recovered quickly, a practice mask falling into place. I wanted to understand what you do. Your mother and I realized we don't know much about your career. Liar. The single word hung between us like a grenade. Excuse me? His voice went dangerously quiet, venomous. You're lying. You didn't call because you care about my career. You called because you're worried about something. What is it, Dad? What are you afraid I know? His face was a carefully blank canvas. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. We stared at each other across the table. This was the moment of truth. I could back down, accept his fake olive branch, pretend I was imagining things. Or I could push forward, show him I wasn't the weak daughter he thought I was. How's business, Dad? I continued, my voice conversational. The real estate market must be challenging these days. It's fine, really. But I heard you've been having some financial difficulties. Cash flow problems, partner disputes, that kind of thing. His eyes narrowed. Who told you that? Nobody told me. I figured it out. There's nothing to figure out. My business is solid. Is it? I challenged, a cruel smile playing on my lips. Because from what I've seen, your business is built on fraud, embezzlement, and tax evasion. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a disappointing daughter with a boring job. The color drained from his face. What did you just say? You heard me, Dad. Tara, I don't know what kind of game you think you're playing. No game. Just facts. You've been stealing from your partners for years using fake companies to hide income, taking money from nonprofits. I have documentation of everything. He leaned forward, his voice low and threatening. You don't know what you're talking about. And if you spread rumors like that, I'll sue you for defamation so fast your head will spin. It's not defamation if it's true. And it's not rumors if I have bank statements, tax returns, and email chains proving everything. For the first time, I saw it, fear. Raw, genuine fear in my father's eyes. You're bluffing. Am I? Want to take that chance? He grabbed his scotch and downed the rest in one gulp. What do you want? Money? Fine. I'll write you a check right now. Name your price. I don't want your money. Then what? I want you to face consequences for what you've done. To me. To your partners. To everyone you've ever used and thrown away. You ungrateful little. He caught himself, glancing frantically at the other diners. When he spoke again, his voice was dangerously controlled, but the rage underneath was palpable. I gave you everything. A roof over your head, food on the table, an education. This is how you repay me? You gave me the bare minimum while giving Kevin and Paige the world. And now you want gratitude? I stood up, slinging my purse over my shoulder. If you do this, if you try to destroy me, you'll regret it. I promise you that. Is that a threat? It's a warning. You think you're clever, but you have no idea what you're up against. I have lawyers, connections, friends in very high places. You're a junior analyst at a mid-level firm. You can't win this fight. We'll see about that, I said, turning to leave. Tara, sit down. We're not finished. Oh, yes we are. I walked away, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst from my chest. Behind me, I heard my father calling my name, then a stream of quiet curses. Good. Let him be scared. Let him wonder what I was planning. I made it to my car before my hands started shaking uncontrollably. I gripped the steering wheel, taking deep, shuddering breaths, trying to regain my composure. That had been far more intense than I'd expected. My father was scared, truly scared, and that meant he would fight back. This was about to get ugly. My phone rang. Timothy. Tell me you have good news, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Mixed news, he replied. My editor approved the story, but he wants to hold it until we have comments from all parties involved. That means we need to contact your father for his side of the story before we publish. When? Tomorrow morning. I'll email him a list of questions and give him 48 hours to respond. He's not going to respond, is he? I said. He's going to lawyer up and try to kill the story. Probably. Timothy conceded. But ethically, I have to give him the chance. I closed my eyes. Okay, do it. And Timothy, be ready. When this breaks, it's going to get messy. I know. Are you ready? I thought about the lunch I just had. The raw fear in my father's eyes. The desperate threats, the attempts to bribe and intimidate. Yeah, I said, opening my eyes. I'm ready. That afternoon, everything changed. I was back at my desk, trying to focus, when Patricia appeared beside me again. Her face was grim. Conference room. Now. Bring your phone. Something in her voice, a quiet urgency, made me move fast. I followed her to the conference room where 3 other senior partners were already waiting, their faces stern. Sit down, Tara, Patricia said. I sat, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm. We received a call this afternoon from a law firm representing someone named Howard Anderson. They're threatening to sue our firm for defamation, harassment, and corporate espionage. They claim you've been stealing confidential information and spreading false allegations about their client. My father had made his first move. The conference room suddenly felt claustrophobic, the air thick with tension. 4 senior partners stared at me, demanding an explanation. Who is Howard Anderson? Gerald, one of the founding partners, asked, his voice sharp. My father, I said quietly. The room went silent. Your father is threatening to sue us because of something you did? Gerald's voice rose, edged with incredulity and anger. Would you care to explain? I took a deep breath. This was it. The moment I either defended myself or let my father intimidate me into silence. 3 months ago, my mother asked me for help with what she called a tax question. She gave me documents from my father's business. When I reviewed them, I noticed patterns consistent with financial fraud. I documented what I found. And then what? Patricia prompted, her expression still unreadable. I gave the information to an investigative journalist. He's been verifying it independently. Tomorrow, he's going to contact my father for comment before publishing a story. Gerald looked like he might have a stroke. You used company resources to investigate your own father? No. I corrected him calmly. I used my personal time and my own computer. The only company resource I used was my professional expertise, which I'm entitled to apply to any situation. That's a technicality. Susan, another partner, interjected. You're employed by this firm. Any work you do reflects on us. The work I did uncovered legitimate fraud that victimizes multiple people and organizations. I countered, meeting her gaze. Isn't that exactly what we do here? Not when it involves our employees' family members. Gerald slammed his hand on the table. Do you have any idea what kind of liability you've exposed us to? Patricia held up a hand. Let's all calm down. Tara, did you steal any documents? No. Everything I have was either given to me directly by my mother, or is publicly available information. Did you misrepresent yourself or the firm in any way during this investigation? No. Did you use company time, equipment, or resources? No. Patricia looked at Gerald. Then technically, she hasn't violated any policies. That doesn't matter. Gerald stood up, pacing furiously. Her father's lawyers are going to drag us through court regardless. This is a disaster. My phone buzzed. A text from Kevin. Dad's lawyer is going after your job. Hope you're happy. Another from Paige. You're destroying the family. I hope it was worth it. Then my mother. How could you do this to us after everything we've given you? I turned my phone face down on the table. There's something you all should know, I said, my voice cutting through Gerald's rant. My father doesn't have a case. He's bluffing. This is intimidation, pure and simple. He's hoping that by threatening the firm, you'll force me to back down. And will you? Susan asked, her voice skeptical. Back down? I met her eyes. No. Then you're suspended, Gerald announced, his voice booming. Effective immediately. Until this situation is resolved, you are not to come into the office or have any contact with clients. You can't suspend me for something I did on my personal time. We can, and we are, for the protection of the firm. I looked at Patricia. She gave me the slightest shake of her head, a subtle warning not to fight this now. I stood up. Fine. I'll be at home if you need me. I walked out of the conference room, my head held high, but inside I was trembling. My father had moved faster than I expected. He was going after my job, my reputation, my credibility. He wanted to destroy me before I could destroy him. But he had made a mistake. By showing his hand this early, by threatening my firm, he had proven that he was scared. And scared people make mistakes. I drove home in a daze. This was escalating faster than I had ever planned. The story wasn't even published yet, and my father was already launching scorched earth attacks. What would he do when the article actually came out? My phone rang. Timothy. I heard about your firm, he said, his voice grim. I'm sorry. How did you? Your father's lawyer called my editor too. Threatened us with a lawsuit if we publish anything. Claimed you're a disgruntled daughter spreading malicious lies. Are you backing off? Hell no, he replied, a new resolve in his voice. But my editor wants to move up the timeline. We're publishing tomorrow morning instead of next week. We're not giving your father time to bury this story. Tomorrow? The article would be public tomorrow. Okay, I said, the word coming out a whisper. Do it. Tara, are you sure? Timothy pressed. Once this is out there, there's no taking it back. I thought about Saturday night, the humiliation, the laughter, my father's smug face as he announced I was cut out of the inheritance. Then I thought about today's lunch, the threats, the intimidation, the way he had tried to destroy my career, my very livelihood. "I'm sure," I affirmed. "All right. The article goes live at 6 a.m. I'll send you a link when it's up." After we hung up, I sat in my car in the apartment parking lot. Tomorrow morning, my father's world would begin to crumble. By noon, everyone in Birmingham would know what he had done. By evening, his business partners would be calling their lawyers. And I would be the one who made it happen. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Kevin. "Whatever you think you know, you're wrong. Dad's a good man." I stared at that message for a long time. Kevin honestly believed it. They all did. They had bought into my father's carefully constructed image of the successful businessman, the devoted family man, the pillar of the community. They had no idea who he really was. I went inside and fed Winston, poured a glass of wine, and tried to eat something. I couldn't. My stomach was a knot of anticipation and nerves. I kept checking my phone, watching the minutes tick by. 20 hours until the article published. 20 hours until everything changed. Around 8 p.m., my grandmother called. "Tara, what's happening?" "Your father called me tonight. Very upset. He says you've been spreading lies about him." "They're not lies, Grandma." "What do you mean?" I told her everything. The fraud, the embezzlement, the fake companies, the stolen money. I told her about the article coming out tomorrow morning. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. "Tara, sweetheart, you need to understand something. Your father comes from a family that values loyalty above everything. What you're doing, exposing him publicly, that's the worst kind of betrayal in his eyes. He betrayed me first. He's been betraying people for years. I know. And he deserves to face consequences. But you need to be prepared for what comes next. Your father won't go down quietly. He'll fight back with everything he has. I know. And the rest of the family will take his side. They always do. I know that too. Then you also know that after tomorrow, you'll be completely alone. No family, no support. Are you prepared for that?" I looked around my small apartment. Winston was curled up on the couch, purring softly. My laptop sat on the kitchen table, full of evidence that would bring down my father's empire. My phone was silent now, but tomorrow, it would explode with messages, some supportive, most accusatory. "Yes," I said, the word a steel-cold resolve. "I'm prepared." Because the truth was, I had been alone for a long time. Saturday night just made it official. "Then I'll pray for you," Grandma said softly. "And Tara, for what it's worth. I'm proud of you. What you're doing takes courage." "Thank you, Grandma." After we hung up, I sat in the darkness of my apartment, waiting for morning, waiting for the article, waiting for everything to fall apart. I didn't sleep that night. Not a wink. I just watched the hours crawl by, my laptop open, refreshing Timothy's website every few minutes, even though I knew the article wouldn't post until 6 a.m. At 5:45, I made coffee. At 5:50, I opened my email. At 5:55, I started refreshing the Tribune's website every 30 seconds. And at exactly 6 a.m., Timothy's article went live. The headline screamed, "Local real estate developer Howard Anderson accused of fraud, embezzlement, and tax evasion." I clicked the link, a cold thrill running through me, and started reading. Timothy had done his job well. Every allegation was meticulously documented. Every claim backed by irrefutable evidence. He'd interviewed several of my father's former business partners who confirmed the fraud. He'd obtained independent verification of the fake companies and hidden accounts. It was perfect. Damning. Undeniable. My phone started ringing immediately. I turned it off. This was it. The point of no return. By 7 a.m., my phone had accumulated 43 missed calls and over 100 text messages. I turned it back on just long enough to see who was trying to reach me. Kevin, 17 calls, 12 texts, all variations of, "How could you?" And you've destroyed everything. Page 9 calls, 23 texts, increasingly hysterical. The last one read, Dad's crying. Are you happy now? My mother, 8 calls, no texts. She preferred to deliver her venom verbally. Various aunts, uncles, and cousins, too many to count. All parroting roughly the same thing. I was a traitor, a liar, a disgrace to the family name. Only one message stood out, a text from my grandmother. The truth always comes out eventually. Stay strong. I made myself breakfast, eggs and toast I barely tasted, and opened my laptop. The Tribune's website had exploded. Timothy's article had been shared thousands of times. The comment section was a war zone, split between people defending my father and people demanding his immediate arrest. Local news channels had already picked up the story. I watched one broadcast on my laptop, seeing my father's business headquarters surrounded by reporters. The anchor spoke in serious tones about allegations of fraud and an ongoing investigation. Then my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. Kevin stood outside, his face red with rage, Paige beside him, arms crossed. I didn't open the door. Kevin pounded on it. Tara, open up! We know you're in there. Go away, I called through the door. Not until you explain yourself, Paige yelled. How could you do this to Dad? To all of us? Everything in that article is true. You know it is. It doesn't matter if it's true, Kevin shouted, his voice cracking. You don't air your family's dirty laundry in public. You don't destroy your own father. He destroyed himself, Kevin. I just documented it. More pounding. Open this door right now, Tara, or I swear. Or what? I cut him off, my voice steady. You'll cut me out of the inheritance? Too late. You'll humiliate me in front of the family? Already done. Face it, Kevin. You have no power over me anymore. The pounding stopped. I heard low, furious voices conferring. Then Paige spoke, her voice suddenly dripping with false sweetness. Tara, please, let's talk about this like adults. Dad wants to work this out. He's willing to forgive you if you'll just publicly retract everything. I almost laughed. Tell Dad that's not happening. You're making a huge mistake, Kevin warned, his voice tight. Dad's lawyer is already preparing a defamation suit. You're going to lose everything, your job, your reputation, your credibility. Is revenge really worth that? This isn't revenge, Kevin. It's justice. Call it whatever you want. You're still going to regret this. They left eventually, but not before Kevin kicked my door hard enough to leave a scuff mark. I watched through the peephole as they got into his car and drove away, probably heading straight to my parents' house to report back. My phone rang. Patricia. Hello, Tara, she said. Have you seen the article? Yes. It's causing quite a stir. I've had 3 calls this morning from reporters asking about you, about whether the firm knew about your investigation. What did you tell them? That you acted independently, and that we can't comment on ongoing matters. But Tara, this changes things. The evidence you gathered? It's legitimate. Gerald and the other partners are reviewing everything, and it looks like your father's threats were empty. He can't sue us for defamation when everything is true. Does that mean I'm not suspended anymore? Patricia paused. The partners are meeting this afternoon. I'll call you after, but between you and me, I think they're going to reinstate you. What you uncovered is massive. This is exactly the kind of case we built our reputation on. After we hung up, I allowed myself a small moment of relief. My job was safe. My career would survive. But the real battle, I knew, was only just beginning. At 10 a.m., my phone rang with an unrecognized number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Tara. My father's voice was rough, tired, almost broken. We need to talk. We have nothing to talk about. Please, just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Something in his tone made me pause. He sounded defeated, utterly stripped of the bluster and menace of yesterday's lunch. 5 minutes? I conceded. Thank you? I want you to know that I never meant for things to get this bad between us. Saturday night was a mistake. The lunch yesterday was a mistake. I was scared, and angry, and I lashed out. You've been lashing out at me for 29 years, Dad. I know. And I'm sorry. But this article, this public humiliation, this goes too far. You're destroying more than just me. You're destroying the whole family. The family destroyed itself when everyone chose to laugh at me instead of standing up for me. Tara, I'm begging you. Call the reporter. Tell him you were mistaken. Tell him you acted out of anger after Saturday night. We can say you misunderstood some documents, that you didn't have the full picture. My lawyers can work with their lawyers, and we can make this go away. No. Why not? What do you gain from this? You've already made your point. You've shown everyone that you're not someone to be pushed around. You've won. Now let it go. I haven't won anything yet. I corrected him, my voice chillingly calm. You're still free. You still have your business. You haven't faced any real consequences. The article is consequence enough. My partners are abandoning me. My clients are demanding their money back. The bank is calling in my loans. I'm finished, Tara. You've destroyed me. Isn't that enough? Not even close. Silence stretched between us, heavy and absolute. Then, in a voice colder than I'd ever heard from him, he said, "Then you've made your choice. Don't expect mercy from me." He hung up. I sat there, staring at my phone, processing the rapid shift. My father had gone from begging to threatening in the span of a single conversation. He was desperate, which made him dangerous, but I was finally done being scared of him. The afternoon brought a fresh wave of chaos. Local news vans materialized in my apartment complex parking lot. Reporters, sensing blood in the water, hammered on my door, demanding interviews. I ignored them all. At 3 p.m., Patricia called with genuinely good news. You're reinstated, effective immediately. The partners reviewed your evidence and agreed that you acted appropriately. In fact, we're considering taking on some of your father's victims as clients if they want to pursue civil cases. Thank you, Patricia, I said, a wave of relief washing over me. Don't thank me. You did this yourself. Come back to work Monday. We'll figure out the rest then. I spent the remainder of Friday watching the story explode online. More victims came forward, business partners who had lost fortunes, investors who had been defrauded, nonprofit organizations that never received promised donations. Each new revelation tightened the noose around my father. By Saturday morning, the state attorney general's office announced an official investigation. Federal investigators were looking into potential tax evasion. My father's entire business was effectively frozen, his records under intense scrutiny. The family group chat, which I was still, somehow, a part of, exploded. Kevin, this is a witch hunt. Dad did nothing wrong. Paige, we need to hire better lawyers. Can anyone recommend someone? Uncle Gerald, I always knew that business was shady. I told Howard to be more careful. And Carol, we should rally around him. Family sticks together. And my mother, where's Tara? Why isn't she in this chat? Oh, wait. She's too busy destroying her own father to care about family. I quietly left the group chat. Sunday afternoon, my grandmother called. I visited your father today, she said, her voice heavy. He looks terrible. He's not sleeping, barely eating. Your mother is a wreck. Kevin and Paige are running around like headless chickens trying to control the damage. I'm sorry you had to see that. Don't be sorry, she replied. This was inevitable. Your father built his empire on lies, and lies always collapse eventually. She paused. But Tara, you need to prepare yourself. This is going to get worse before it gets better. What do you mean? Your father is talking about declaring bankruptcy. He's trying to move assets around, hide money. He's desperate. And desperate men do desperate things. Like what? Like trying to pin this on someone else. Like trying to make you look like the villain. He's already telling people you fabricated evidence, that you're mentally unstable, that you've always been jealous of him. He's building a narrative where he's the victim and you're the villain. Let him, I said, a chilling calm in my voice. The evidence speaks for itself. I know. I just wanted you to be ready. Monday morning, I returned to work. My colleagues greeted me with a mixture of curiosity and respect. Some congratulated me on the investigation, others, uncomfortable with the family drama, avoided eye contact. Patricia called me into her office mid-morning. We have 3 new clients, she announced, a hint of excitement in her voice. All victims of your father's schemes. They want you specifically to work on their cases. Me? You're the expert on his financial crimes. You know his methods better than anyone. Are you comfortable with that? I thought about it. Taking on my father's victims meant I would be directly involved in his downfall. More confrontations, more stress, more family drama. But also, more justice. Yes, I said. I'm comfortable with it. The first client was Thomas, who had invested $200,000 in one of my father's fake real estate developments. The second was Jennifer, whose nonprofit had lost $50,000 in promised donations that never materialized. The third was a couple, Robert and Claire, who had been business partners with my father for 10 years. Before discovering he'd been siphoning money from their joint ventures. I met with each of them, meticulously documented their cases, and began building their lawsuits. Each conversation peeled back more layers of my father's deception. Each story revealed another life he had damaged in his relentless pursuit of wealth and status. By Wednesday, my father's lawyer had filed motions to freeze all investigations, claiming prosecutorial misconduct and bias. The motions were summarily denied. By Thursday, 2 of my father's former business partners had filed criminal complaints. The state attorney general announced that formal charges were forthcoming. And by Friday, exactly 1 week after Timothy's article had been published, my father was arrested. I was at work when the news broke. Timothy sent me a text with a link to a video. I clicked it and watched as my father, in handcuffs, was led out of his office by federal agents. Reporters swarmed him, shouting questions. His lawyer tried to shield him from the cameras, but for a split second, my father looked directly into one. His face was twisted with raw rage and utter humiliation. And I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt, no triumph. Just a cold, empty certainty that justice was finally, truly being served. My phone exploded with messages. Kevin, I hope you're proud of yourself. Paige, you did this. This is your fault. My mother, you've destroyed your father. I will never forgive you. Various relatives, a litany of accusations, insults, disownments. And then one message from my grandmother. He made his choices. You made yours. I'm proud of you for standing up for what's right. That night, I went home, and for the first time, I allowed myself to feel everything. The anger. The hurt. The decades of being overlooked and undervalued. The searing humiliation of that Saturday night 2 weeks ago. The fear during the confrontation at lunch. The crushing stress of watching everything unfold. I cried for an hour, raw and unfiltered. Winston curled up beside me, purring softly, a silent comfort. When the tears finally stopped, I felt lighter. Cleaner. Free. My father was facing justice. His victims would get their day in court. And I had proven to myself that I was stronger than anyone, including me, had ever realized. The trial began 3 months later. By then, the case against my father had swollen to include 18 counts of fraud, 12 counts of embezzlement, and 7 counts of tax evasion. His business had utterly collapsed. His assets were frozen. His reputation destroyed. I attended every day of the trial, sitting in the back of the courtroom. My father never once looked at me. My mother, Kevin, and Paige sat on the opposite side, their faces masks of anger and grief. The prosecution called me as a witness on day 4. I walked to the stand, placed my hand on the Bible, and swore to tell the truth. The prosecutor, a woman named Catherine, was sharp and thorough. "Ms. Anderson, can you explain how you first discovered your father's fraudulent activities?" I calmly and professionally walked the court through everything: the documents my mother had given me, the patterns I noticed, the investigation I conducted. I explained each piece of evidence, unflustered. My father's lawyer tried to discredit me during cross-examination. "Isn't it true that you were angry with your father?" "Yes." "And isn't it true that you wanted revenge?" "I wanted justice," I replied, my voice steady. "But you admit you were motivated by anger?" "I was motivated by the truth. My anger was justified, but it didn't change the facts. The fraud happened whether I was angry about it or not." The lawyer tried every angle, but I had prepared for this. Every question, every attempt to paint me as a vengeful daughter, I deflected with unshakable facts and cold, hard evidence. When I stepped down from the stand, I felt my father's eyes on me for the first time. I looked directly at him. He looked old, suddenly diminished. All the power and confidence that had defined him was gone. The trial lasted 6 weeks. The jury deliberated for 2 days. The verdict: guilty on all counts. I was at work when the verdict came in. Patricia called me into her office, and we watched the news conference together. The prosecutor stood outside the courthouse, flanked by several of my father's victims, announcing the conviction. "Justice has been served today," Catherine stated, her voice clear and strong. "Howard Anderson used his position and reputation to defraud dozens of people over many years. Thanks to the courage of whistleblowers and victims who came forward, he will now face the consequences of his actions." Sentencing was scheduled for 3 weeks later. In the meantime, my life continued its dramatic shift. My clients, the victims I had helped, expressed their gratitude. Some sent flowers, others wrote heartfelt letters. One couple invited me to dinner, spending the entire evening thanking me for giving them a chance at justice. My firm promoted me to senior forensic accountant with a significant raise and expanded responsibilities. Patricia told me I had a bright future ahead of me. "You did something extraordinary," she said. "Not many people have the courage to stand up to family, especially when that family has power and resources. You should be proud." I was proud, yes, but I was also utterly exhausted. The sentencing hearing was held on a Tuesday morning in November. The courtroom was packed. My father's victims filled the gallery, alongside reporters and curious onlookers. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, listened patiently as victim after victim stood, their voices raw with emotion, describing how my father's crimes had shattered their lives. Thomas, who lost his retirement savings; Jennifer, whose nonprofit nearly collapsed; Robert and Claire, whose business partnership and friendship with my father had been built on a foundation of lies. When it was my turn to speak, I walked to the front of the courtroom. "Your Honor," I began, my voice clear and steady. "I'm not here merely as a victim, though in many ways I am one. I'm here as someone who once looked up to the man sitting at that table. Someone who wanted nothing more than his approval and his love. For years I tried to earn it, by being perfect, by achieving success, by making him proud. It never worked. And when I finally stood up for myself, when I refused to be silent about his crimes, he tried to destroy me." I looked at my father. He was staring fixedly at the table, refusing to meet my eyes. But he didn't destroy me. Instead, I found my own strength. I learned that real family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about respect, support, and love. The people who matter most aren't the ones who share your last name. They're the ones who stand beside you when everything falls apart. I returned to my seat. The judge thanked me and took a brief recess. When she returned, her voice was firm, resolute. "Mr. Anderson, you have been convicted of serious crimes that harmed numerous individuals and organizations. You used your position of trust to manipulate and deceive. You showed no remorse, even when confronted with overwhelming evidence. Therefore, I sentence you to 15 years in federal prison, to be followed by 5 years of supervised release. You will also pay full restitution to all identified victims." My father's shoulders sagged, his entire frame collapsing. My mother sobbed openly. Kevin and Paige looked utterly stunned. I felt nothing but a profound, quiet relief. In the months that followed, my family's downfall continued its agonizing trajectory. My mother filed for divorce, desperately trying to salvage what little money remained after restitution payments. Kevin lost his job when his employer inevitably discovered his connection to the scandal. Paige's online boutique finally collapsed under the weight of debt she could no longer hide. My father began serving his sentence at a federal prison in Alabama. I received one letter from him, a plea for forgiveness and understanding. I never responded. Kevin and Paige both tried to reconnect with me at different times, claiming they understood now that I had been right. I politely declined. Some bridges, once burned, should stay that way. Only my grandmother remained a constant presence in my life. We met for lunch once a month, and she never mentioned my father unless I brought him up. You did what needed to be done, she told me more than once. The rest of them will have to learn to live with the consequences of their own choices. I sat in my new apartment, a bigger place in a better neighborhood that I could finally afford with my promotion, watching the sunset paint the sky through floor-to-ceiling windows. Winston lounged on the couch beside me, purring contentedly. My phone buzzed with a message from Timothy. Anniversary dinner next week. 1 year since the article that changed everything. I smiled and typed back. I'll be there. 1 year. It felt like a lifetime and a moment, all at once. I had lost the family, yes, but I had gained something infinitely more valuable: self-respect, independence, and the unshakable knowledge that I could survive anything. Standing up for what was right had cost me more than I could have ever imagined that night at the family dinner. But it had also given me something priceless: the freedom to build a life on my own terms, surrounded by people who actually valued me. As I looked out at the Birmingham skyline, I thought about that moment, just 2 weeks after the article published, when my father was led away in handcuffs. I had felt empty then, uncertain if the price of justice was too high. Now, a year later, I knew the answer. Some revenge isn't about destruction. It's about liberation. It's about refusing to be silenced, refusing to accept injustice, refusing to let the people who hurt you continue hurting others. My father had taught me to be ruthless. He just never expected me to use those lessons against him. And that, truly, was his biggest mistake. So tell me, if you found yourself in my shoes, facing betrayal from the very people who should have loved you most, would you have chosen to walk away quietly, or would you have done what I did? Let me know in the comments below. I genuinely want to hear what you think.